Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of videos on data structures using Python. In this video, we are going to concentrate on understanding the tokens in Python. I am Mohammad Manzoor Hussain, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in B.V. Raju Institute of Technology, Narsapur campus. To go further, we are going to look after with respect to the topic called as what is tokens, what are the different categories of tokens which are allowed to be used in Python, which are namely keywords, identifiers, literals, operators, punctuators. And further, we are going to conclude with respect to a summary of all these literals, how they are going to be used in the program. To start with, the tokens are the smallest unit of any particular programming language, which are the building blocks of any particular program, and they are the basic indivisible elements of Python in any particular program. They are fundamental building blocks from which code is constructed, and in any particular program, if we want to construct a code, we must use these tokens in one or the other form. They are the basic lexical components which are Python interpreter breaks down source code into sequence of these tokens during lexical analysis, and which is the first phase of compilation. During the compilation of any code in any particular programming language, the whole program is getting divided into small chunk of units, which are basically the lexical analyzing units called as tokens, and lexical analysis is the first phase of compilation, which basically bifurcates which are the valid tokens and which are invalid tokens, and which are providing the syntax errors with respect to the code. They are the meaningful elements where each token carries a specific meaning within the programming language like Python, contributing to the program syntax and the structure. In any particular program, if we want to concentrate on a code which has to run, then it must have the code with respect to these tokens. With respect to these tokens, we must write the code and it must work with a meaningful units of tokens. When we categorize these units, the classification of these tokens will be into various categories like keywords, identifiers, literals, operators, and punctuators, as I mentioned at the starting of this video. Each will be serving a distinct role in constructing any particular code. To go further, let us check it out what is there in this particular categories on a brief nature. If we see there, keywords are basically the reserved words with specific meaning. Their usage is basically representing a specific work and specific representation of the code. And if we concentrate there as an example, we have the different decision making constructs like if then else, while, def, definition, class, import, and true or false. If we concentrate with respect to data type name itself is also a token. And if we concentrate with respect to usage of any programming construct, the name of any particular programming construct is also a keyword whose usage is actually explaining about working of the code in a specific concern. When we talk about identifiers, identifiers are helping the coder to go beyond the level of keywords where he can provide his own defined words as the building blocks of the code, and he can help the code to work with the names with respect to variables, names with respect to functions, names with respect to class names, names with respect to any data structure name. Next, if you see there, the examples are going to be what are the different types of variables we are using in a code. The variable name itself is again an identifier name. If I am concentrating with respect to a function which is going to calculate a sum, then that particular sum is going to be basically working with respect to a function, then we can say that the function name also is an identifier name. And if I am creating a class, then the class name, user class name, is also an identifier name. Next, if we see there, the literals are basically the constants which has meaning, which with respect to the various data types, we are having the literals, where if we talk about the literals, we are having string literals, we are having numeric literals, we are having boolean literals, and none, the data type which doesn't have any particular value in it, none is also going to be considered as a literal. Next, a category of tokens is operators. We are going to have another video on this particular topic where we are going to concentrate about which are the different types of operators we are going to use in Python and which we are allowed to use in Python, and allows the Python is going to entertain us to use these operators to work with respect to some certain operations. So operators are the symbols whose usage is basically helping us to understand about performing an operation. You take any arithmetic operator like addition, subtraction, they are also the tokens which are helping their own part, or they are going to provide their own role in executing the code. Lastly, but not least, without these tokens, we cannot have the code to be run, that is punctuators. These are the symbols that organize the structure of the code. Organize and structure the code. We are going to basically work with respect to these literals, these which are punctuators. So if we see there, parenthesis, opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis, square brackets, and the scope braces, and a comma, and a semicolon, colon, even a dot is also going to work as a punctuator in the code. So to go further in detail, what are keywords? Let us understand what are keywords. These are the reserve words whose usage in a code is basically having a meaning and explaining that the code has to work with respect to this specific operation. When we talk about the reserve words are basically helping the coder to run with basic construct of the code, where he can have a predefined meaning of words which are having a purpose of usage in the language. The special functions, if we concentrate, which are built-in functions, we can perform those specific functions with respect to a control of flow of the program, or with respect to a repetition of the code, or with respect to a conditional execution of the code, or going with respect to defining any particular function and classes. We are basically using different kinds of keywords. Keywords must not be considered or must not be used as any other work, or their usage is restricted to one of the meaningful purpose. So they must not be used for any other purpose other than their specific definition. If we concentrate with respect to syntactic integrity, keywords are essential for maintaining the Python's syntax. So any particular programming language, if we concentrate, keywords are basically working for maintaining the syntax of the whole code. Their usage is going to restrict the code to work in a specific path and to achieve the goal of the output. They cannot be used as an identifier like variable names or the function names or class names or any other things which are not representing a reserved kind of working. So to avoid conflicts and ambiguity, we should not use the keyword names to be used as an identifier name. Should not be used as an identifier name. So if we talk about language structure, they perform the core structure of Python code, dictating how statements are interpreted and executed by the Python interpreter. If an interpreter is going to execute the code line by line, it is going to first confirm and recognize which are the keywords used in the code and which are not the keywords used in the code, and then it is going to bifurcate them, and then it is going to go for the execution of that line of the code in Python. When we talk about immutable set, we are basically having a list of keywords which are immutable, means their definition cannot be modified. Relatively, they are fixed in nature. Though it may be expanded slightly with the new Python versions, we can have more number of words to be involved as keywords. further in next particular versions of Python, whereas their usage is going to be restricted for one special purpose of execution. Next category of tokens is identifiers. We basically have identifier making the coder to be more well versed with respect to coding in his own nature of coding the problem, where he can have his own defined words in the code which may be categorized as identifier names. And as I mentioned in previous slide, that identifier names should not be used as a keyword. So let us go with the definition of an identifier. Identifiers are basically the names given to various programming elements like variables, functions, class names, and modules, allowing you to reference them within your code. So their usage is completely concerned with respect to lifetime of the program. Until the program is executing, these words are having their lifespan, and they will be working for the role of executing towards the output of the code. They are going to provide their own part of execution role, and we are going to head towards getting the actual output which we are expecting. What are the different rules when we are concentrating for giving an identifier name? The different rules, because we must have a rule for giving a name to be used as a user defined names. Therefore, we are having certain rules here where every particular identifier name must start with letters which can be a uppercase alphabets or lowercase alphabets, or it can be a underscore also. We are basically declaring, and we are basically defining any particular identifier name by using either the letters, that is your alphabets, uppercase alphabets and lowercase alphabets, and you are allowed to use underscores, you are allowed to use numeric characters also. But the first character of the name must start with either an uppercase alphabet or a lowercase alphabet, or it can be starting with an underscore. Following with any combination of these characters, including the digits, that is numeric characters 0 to 9, can also be included in the naming convention. When we talk about the case sensitivity, yes, we are having case sensitivity in this particular programming language also, as we are having in other programming languages. So Python is also case sensitive with respect to the name which we are using as a identifier name. Therefore, we must have the identifier name as a case sensitive name, where we can say that my var, where uppercase V is used in mid of the identifier name, and my var, where lowercase v is used as a character in the string name. We can say that we are basically having two kinds of identifier names used in the code and must be treated in a distinct identifier names. When we talk about descriptive naming, any particular function or any particular variable is having a descriptive naming, like area of a triangle, or area of a circle, or I can say a length of a rectangle, or breadth of rectangle, or side of a triangle. These are basically the descriptive name of any particular identifier name. And if you see there, I am giving area. If I concentrate area of circle, we are basically having three words, and we are not allowed to give the name in this way, where we are having the blank space in between. We are not allowed to give blank space also in the code, where we are supposed to use any of the character other than blank space. We are supposed to give the underscore at least. And we are not allowed to give any special character other than using underscore. We are not allowed to give any of the characters to be used as an identifier names character. Therefore, the descriptive names must be taken care of when we are giving the names to any of the variable. And if I say I am giving the name as area of rectangle, then I am supposed to give underscore in between these three words, and then the interpreter will be considering this particular complete string as an identifier name. Otherwise, what will happen if I am not giving an underscore in between? The interpreter is going to be directly nullifying the of rectangle part and directly concentrating area as a variable name, and of rectangle is going to be considered as syntactical. Therefore, we should concentrate about what we are giving the name of the variable. It must be identifiable. It must be able to give us the meaning wherever we are giving the name of any particular variable. It should not be considered in a guesswork or in a format of an individual that I have defined a variable x which is working for me as an area of a rectangle. This will be only known to you. And if any one new person is assigned with this particular program to analyze, then he may not understand what is the meaning of x, and he will be making the path of execution to go somewhere else. There, it is just a simple example as a naming convention. We should concentrate that an identifier name should be given in such a way there that it should not, first and foremost, it should not clash with whichever built-in reserve words are already being defined. The second rule is it should have start with uppercase alphabets or lowercase alphabets, or an underscore can be used as a first character in an identifier name. Third is any combination of uppercase character, lowercase character, underscores and digits can be used further as the next particular characters of identifier name. Fourth rule is the case sensitivity, where we say that every particular identifier name, if the naming convention is having a different kind of case characters, then they must be considered as or distinct identifier names. And whenever we are giving a descriptive name to any particular variable, it must be a meaningful name and must have an underscore involved inside, in between of multiple words of English. If we are using to give as an identifier name, then underscore must be used as a connective other than using blank space. Reason is blank space is a special character which is not allowed to be used as an identifier names character. Therefore, we are allowed to use only uppercase characters, uppercase alphabets, lowercase alphabets, underscores and set of digits we can use as a characters in the name of an identifier name. Other than this, no other special character is allowed to be used as a character in identifier name. So the no keyword uses, as I mentioned already, identifiers cannot be the same as any of the Python's reserved keywords, preventing the conflicts with the language's syntax. The next category of tokens is literals. We basically are having these literals to understand or to give the information to the code which it should work on, and the data which is going to be provided to the code will be basically considered as literals. Which kind of data we are allowed to give to the program in Python? We are allowed to give any particular constant values whose meaning is fixed, and they are having a direct embedded into the source code. Means we are having a literals to represent a fixed values, constant values, those are, whose meaning cannot be changed and can be directly embedded in the code. We basically have data type representation as well with respect to the literal. They denote a specific kind of data or specific type of data, including strings, numbers, Boolean values, and a none type also. They must be used to assign values to the variables or to directly use values within the expressions. They are going to be basically directly used values in an expression, or they are going to be assigned directly into the variable or in any particular functions. We are allowed to give them as a direct values or assigned values to the identifier names. They are immutable values. Immutable in the sense here, the meaning of immutability says that their meaning cannot be changed. It means by writing 1, 0, I cannot read them as 1 separately and 0 separately if I am concentrating it as 10, that is numeric 10. If I am concentrating it as numeric 10, then I should take this particular value to be taken as number 10. Means their value or their meaning, the value or the meaning of 10 is not going to change if I am treating it as an integer. And if I am giving small x, that is a lowercase x, or I am giving uppercase x, they are having their own meaning. By writing it as x, I cannot read it as capital A. Or by writing it capital uppercase X, I cannot read it as capital B. You are feeling like this is not a confusing session. I am giving you an impression that which are basically treated as the literals in any particular programming language. So literals are going to be those symbols whose meaning is fixed and they cannot be changed throughout their lifetime. And they are immutable with respect to their quantability values. There are various forms of literals we are having, such as string literals are enclosed in between double quotes or single quotes. Numeric literals, which are representing the numbers. Boolean values, which are represented with respect to true or false. See that you are having the first character in this particular word is uppercase. If I am using an uppercase T and uppercase F, they are basically the Boolean literals. If I am writing small t r u e, this is an identifier name. If I am writing lowercase f with FALSE, then it is also going to be considered as an identifier name. So, what is going to differ between identifier and the Boolean type of value is the first character. The first character is uppercase T or uppercase F, saying that the values are basically Boolean type of literals. And we are having another kind of literal which doesn't represent any kind of data, is non-literal. If any particular variable doesn't have or doesn't going to store any particular value, is going to be considered as none type of variable. The next category of tokens is operators. As I mentioned, we are going to have a detailed video on this particular topic. We are having an operators to be used in a code which is used to apply or which is going to be used to execute and perform a specific operation on operands. When we talk about operator and operand, what will be the difference between operator and operand? The difference between operator and operand will be the usage of the symbol. If any particular token is going to be considered as an operator, its usage is basically working and performing a specific operation, and onto which any particular token it is applying its execution or it is executing its operation, that particular token is going to be considered as operand. The operand can be direct literal, The operand can be a variable value. The operand can be an expression in itself. An expression in itself, which can be again, if I am talking about this, which can be again what I can say, a function call or any particular kind of assignment operator. So operand can be of these kind of categories. So the difference between operator and operand is the operator is used to perform a specific operation on the operands. Those are values and variables. There are different categories of operators we are having in Python, which are the symbols basically used in Python and executing themselves, or used in the program to execute an operation, specific kind of operation. We basically have arithmetic operators, we are having comparison operator, we are having assignment operator, we are having logical operator, we are having bitwise operators, and membership operators. What are these? We are going to see in coming sequence of videos. We are going to check it out. What are they working on? How they are going to working on, and what will be the priority of using them? We are going to see this thing in detail in next coming video. When we talk about operand manipulation, we are already mentioned that we can manipulate the values of an operand to produce the result. Means your operators are basically helping us to go further in the path of getting the actual output which was being expected by the coder. So if we are using the operators, we are allowed to manipulate the operand values also to go further to produce a result, such as adding numbers, comparing values, or assigning values to the variable again. When we talk about a formation of an expression, as I mentioned, operators and operands are going to be used to form an expression. An expression is going to have these two blocks included in them, and operators are used to form expressions which are combinations of operands and operators that evaluate to a single value. Means we are getting a single value which is considered to be the result of that line of code. When we talk about executing these operators, as I mentioned, the priority of which operator to execute first and which operator to execute next is going to be considered and taken care of with respect to the order of precedence, where Python operators have a specific order of execution with respect to the precedence, which determines the order in which operators are performed within the expression. To go further, the next set of last but not least category of tokens is punctuators. Without using these tokens, we cannot write any code in any particular programming language. These are basically working for constructing the whole flow of the code. Therefore, we can say they are basically helping us for creating the syntax structure. So, punctuators are the symbols that basically help in defining the syntax and the structure of Python code, making it readable and understandable by the interpreter. So, it is going to be helping the interpreter to bifurcate between line of codes and block of codes. And grouping and separation, we are basically using these tokens, that is punctuators, for grouping the expressions, separating the items in the list or tuples, and delimiting the code blocks. We are basically using either parenthesis or square brackets or commas for bifurcating between the tokens and different line of codes. When we talk about termination and delimitation of any particular part of code, we are basically using the punctuator called as colon and semicolon through which is very less used in the Python than some other languages. Semicolon is used very rarely in the Python code, but basic usage of any of the termination or delimitation in any code in Python language is going to be done using colon and are used to mark the end of the statement or to separate them within a line. We basically have something called as indentation, and the block indentation is going to be helping the whole code to divide itself either into a decision making construct or a sequential construct or a repetitive or iterative construct. What are these? We are going to see them further in the coming videos. So till that time, you keep in mind the punctuators are basically helping us to construct these programming construct also. So what is the basic usage of punctuators? As in English grammar, punctuators in programming languages are also having specific meaning of reorganizing the whole structure of the code. So when we talk about code block indentation or making the statement termination or grouping and separation, we are basically using the punctuators. If we are concentrating with object-oriented paradigm, then there comes the work of usage of dot operator, which is basically helping a object to be referred with respect to its own data fields and methods, which is going to be using to access the attributes and the methods of objects, providing a way to navigate and interact with the components of an object. To go further, if we conclude the whole video and sum up what has happened in the whole video, we are using these tokens as a building block of any particular code, and tokens are going to be the fundamental building blocks that constitute the syntax of Python code and providing a structure and meaning of the language. Interpreter comprehension. The Python interpreter relies on tokens to pass and understand the code, enabling it to execute instruction correctly. Essentially, for code construction, tokens are basic units from which all Python programs are constructed, including keyword, identifier, operator, literal, and punctuator. Whichever symbol wants to be involved in executing the problem statement, then it must be either categorized in any of these categories. So, which is enabling the first phase of compilation to execute, that is lexical analysis, where the whole code is going to be divided into small chunk of units, and those small chunk of units are going to be classified into usable tokens and unusable, unrecognizable symbols. So, crucial part with respect to program functionality, each token typically plays a vital role in program functionality, and it is the basic consideration for making the code to go and go further to give us main work of problem solving, that is providing a result. If the token is not recognizable, the code is not going to reach the result. Over to you people. Go further and explore about what are the different kind of categories we are already seen in this particular video, and what are the new things are being included in these categories further in the newer version of Python. Happy coding. Meet you in the next video of this series. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.